So we're all hugging these families right now. Obviously, it's a holiday, Hanukkah. It makes it even more difficult. And these hostages have been held there for 2 months now. It's unfathomable. We have definitely some idea, some intelligence, but it's a very complicated situation. We're fighting there. We want to bring them back, and we know that Hamas only responds to pressure. If we didn't put military pressure, if we weren't hitting them as hard as we are right now, and we did before, we wouldn't have seen the release of hostages. So that's what we're doing right now.
You had that truce for 7 days that you got some of the hostages released. That broke down. Is there hope?
Day 8.
Is there hope that there could be another truce, that we could get more of these hostages home to their families?
Wait, one way or another, we're working in various avenues to bring about their release. The goals are, as we said, to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime and bring all hostages home. Now, these two goals, they go hand in hand. They're not contradictory.
Mika has a question for you. Mika?
I'm just curious. I mean, it's been 2 months, Tal, and a lot of us have been asking this question repeatedly. How it's possible that so many hours passed before this attack was contained and so many people were lost and tortured during that time. Hours that victims were trapped, murdered, raped, kidnapped. Hamas stormed the gates. They stormed by land. They stormed in ATVs. They stormed by the air in paragliders in plain sight. I don't understand how it took hours and that there wasn't an immediate response in moments.
This is a good question, and we are also asking it, and we are providing answers, and we will share these answers. No, we will share these answers when the time will come, because we are still investigating it, and we will continue to investigate. We're a democratic country. We have conducted thorough inquiries in the past, and we will continue to do it. We are drawing some lessons as we go, because this can never, ever happen again. And there's no doubt here that October 7th was a major failure on our end.
But there has to be some immediate answer. I mean, it's beyond a major failure. I mean, lives could have been saved. This country is not that big. I mean, physically, to get to these victims and to this attack could have been minutes, and it was hours. There's got to be an explanation for that.
Once we have a solid explanation, once we thoroughly inquired all of this, we will, of course, share. But right now, we are drawing the lessons that we need to operate right now.
Out, Mika Brzezinski bringing the heat. And on this Hanukkah season, no less. Yeah. Jeez, oh man. Hey, everybody, welcome back. I don't have to tell you where you are, because you already know. You're on the Hoplite channel. And we are here for this new episode, Holy Land Shenanigans. WTF is this all about? Yes. In my last episode, I called this, Old Testament, a new war. And I'm going to have to admit, in the last couple weeks, I've changed my tune. I don't think this is a war. And I now think that this is just an extension of U.S. foreign policy, and shame on me for not seeing it sooner. But anyway, appreciate you all coming back for this new episode, and I'm going to explain myself as to why I believe this war, quote unquote, is the cover story, like most wars are for other things that we never find out about until many decades later. But we're going to try to sift through this and make sense of it in the here and now. So let's recap yet again, because it's been about a month or so, maybe more, since my last episode. October 7th, 23, Hamas attack. Everybody knows about that. I was on the music festival. Roughly 1,200 Israelis and some foreigners who were mixed in that music festival were killed. There were other Israelis outside the music festival that were killed. But yeah, we saw the footage of the Hamas fighters paragliding over the wall, the prison wall that the Israeli government built to imprison Palestinians in the West Bank. And Hamas just built paragliders, like hobby shop paragliders, flew over the wall and kill these folks. And as you saw in the opening clip, Mika, like the rest of us, is saying, your country is the size of, New Jersey, and these attacks were unprecedented. Why did it take the Israeli military hours to respond? Why didn't it take minutes? And the Israeli spokesperson said, we're investigating it, and we'll let you know when the time is right. Whatever that means, right? Not, we'll let you know once we determine why it took so long. We'll just let you know when the time is right. Be that a year or two, or maybe never. So that's the answer that Mika got for that. But what's happened in the meantime? October 8th to December 19th, just a couple days before Christmas, the IDF has managed to kill now between 18 and 20,000 Palestinian civilians. That's civilians, not Hamas terrorists. That's a different count. These are just men, women, and children who are non-combatants. And that's anywhere from 260 to 270 civilians killed each and every single day by the IDF. And as I said in the first episode on this topic, that's a war crime for every single death. You cannot attribute that volume of innocent civilian deaths to collateral damage, to confusion, to fog of war. That doesn't fly. As I said in the first episode in regards to the Ukraine-Russia war, Russia's fighting a far larger army in the Ukrainian army than Israel is fighting against Hamas. They're fighting in a country that's at least 10 times bigger than Israel, possibly 20 times bigger. And the United States and Western countries are flooding as best they can, not so much anymore, that country with weapons to fight back. And despite all that going on, Russia has still managed to kill far less in 2 years what Israel has managed to kill in just over 2 months. So it's either A, deliberate in this number of people being killed, or two, so reckless and indiscriminate that they are just killing anything that's not them. And either way you slice it, those are war crimes. Well, I just shot. Well, who'd you shoot at? The crowd. So you didn't deliberately, pick any individual? No, there was a mass of people and I just shot at it. Okay, that's a war crime. Okay, well, I shot that guy deliberately. Well, who was he? I don't know. He wasn't carrying a weapon? No, that's a war crime. There's no excuse for it. And the more people say this, the more people will become interested in what's going on the other side. All you hear about in the media still is this, and Israel has the right to defend itself. No one ever said they didn't, but this isn't self-defense. This is evil retribution on a crazy scale now. And when I said, it was the Old Testament new war, it's not a war because these people can't fight back. And I'm going to read you an article that I just found today, and it's heartbreaking, but it needs to be read, at least for this channel and for the few people who might see it. But it involves a very sad story about what just happened recently, and I'll jump to it. This is from the AP. A Palestinian baby girl born 17 days ago during Gaza war is killed with brother in Israeli strike. This came out literally today. It says Rafah in Gaza. She was born mid-war in a hospital with no electricity in a southern Gaza city that has been bombarded daily. Her family named her Amira Aisha, Princess Aisha. She didn't complete her third week before she died, killed in an Israeli airstrike that crushed her family home Tuesday. Her extended family was asleep when the strike leveled their apartment building in Rafah before dawn, said Susan Zohrab, the infant's grandmother and survivor of the blast. Hospital officials said 27 people were killed, among them Amira and her 2-year-old brother Ahmed. Just 2 weeks old, her name hadn't even been registered, Susan said, her voice quivering as she spoke from the side of her son's hospital bed, who was also injured in the blast. The family tragedy comes as the Palestinian death toll in Gaza nears 20,000. According to the health ministry, the vast majority have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, which have relentlessly pounded and besieged Gaza enclave for 2.5 months, often destroying homes with families inside. The war has triggered when Hamas militants, which rules Gaza, and other groups broke into the southern Israel on October 7th, killing some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducting 240 others. The Zohrab family were among the few Palestinians in Gaza who remained in their own homes. Israel's onslaught, one of the most destructive of the 21st century, has displaced some 1.9 million people, more than 80% of the territory's population, sending them in search of shelter in UN schools, hospitals, and tents and camps or on the street. But the Zohrabs stayed in their 3-story apartment building. 2 of Susan's sons had apartments on higher floors, but the extended family had been crowding together on the ground floor, believing it would be safer. When the strike hit, it killed at least 13 members of the Zohrab family, including a journalist, Adele, as well as displaced people sheltering nearby. We found the whole house collapsed over us, Susan said. Rescue workers pulled them and other victims, living and dead, from the wreckage. Israel says it's striking Hamas targets across Gaza and blames the militants for civilian deaths because they operate in residential areas, but it rarely explains its targeting behind specific strikes. Princess Aisha was only 17 days old. She was born December 2nd at the Emirati Red Crescent Hospital in Rafah, while there was no power to the facility. Susan said less than 48 hours after bombardment of the town and the rest of Gaza resumed following the collapse of a week-long ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. She was born in a very difficult situation, Susan said. As of Monday, 28 of Gaza's 36 hospitals across the Gaza Strip were reported as out of service, the UN said, while 8 remaining health facilities were only partially operational. Amid the devastation, some 50,000 Palestinian women are pregnant, the WHO said. Princess Aisha and Ahmed's parents survived, their mother, Malak, with burns and bruises on her face, their father, Mahmoud, with a fractured pelvis. As Mahmoud lay in his bed at Rafah's Kuwaiti hospital, Susan brought him the 2 children for a final goodbye before they were buried. Mahmoud grimaced with pain as he pulled himself up the cradle, wrapped in a white burial shroud, before falling back and weeping. His wife held Princess Aisha, also bundled in white cloth, up to him. Dozens of mourners held a funeral prayer Tuesday morning outside the hospital in Rafah before taking Princess Aisha, Ahmed, and the others killed in the strike for burial in a nearby cemetery. I couldn't protect my grandchildren, Susan said. I lost them in the blink of an eye. Okay. Now you can see the pictures in the story as I read. These are real people and these are real children, and they're being killed. The United States has never gone through anything like this in over 150 years. So it seems so like fictional for us to read this. Like, how could such a thing like happen to a country of people? But it is happening. And as I said, this 17-day-old little girl and her 2-year-old brother were killed in the same airstrike. And I don't care what anybody says. That place could have been floor to floor with Hamas fighters. The fact that they simply dropped bombs on this apartment complex to get the bad guys, meanwhile killing all of these civilians, is unacceptable. We would never accept this were this a United States operation. If we knew there were civilians, especially infant children, in a building, anybody who gave the order or took it upon themselves to drop a bomb on that apartment would most likely face criminal charges and possibly murder charges. It's beneath contempt what's happening to these people. It's beneath contempt for the people who are fighting in the IDF that are doing this. And it will be no defense for them to ever say, I was just following orders, because we know how historically that goes. But let's go further. Okay, we understand that Israel doesn't care for Palestinians. What just happened a few days ago that now the IDF is admitting to? Let's read the next story. This is NPR. This is from December 16th. Israel's military says hostages waved a white flag before being killed by a soldier. Tel Aviv. An investigation into the killing of 3 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza has found that the captives were shirtless and waving a white flag as Israeli soldiers fired on them. Preliminary reports Saturday by the IDF said the hostages had managed to evade their captors in northern Gaza neighborhood of Shajia before they were mistakenly identified as they exited a building on Friday. They were then shot by an Israeli soldier. 2 were killed immediately, and another was wounded and ran back into the building. An Israeli official said in a briefing on Saturday. Soldiers then heard a cry for help in Hebrew. The soldier's battalion commander ordered the firing to stop. The 3rd hostage later died of his wounds. Last month, Hamas released more than 100 hostages in a 7-day truce in exchange for about 300 Palestinian prisoners and detainees held by Israel. The 3 captives killed on Friday were among the more than 100 hostages believed still held by the Palestinian militant group. The preliminary report concluded the soldiers involved in the accidental shooting did not follow the IDF's own rules of engagement. The hostages had been dressed in civilian clothes and waving a white flag before they were shot by a soldier who felt under threat, the military official said. Hamas militants wear civilian clothes to deceive the military. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the deaths of the 3 captives Yotim Hayim, Samer Fouad al-Talaka, and Alon Shamirs, all in their 20s, an unbearable tragedy. Families of the hostages have kept up public pressure on Netanyahu's government, calling for Israel's top priority to be safe return of the hostages, and not the military operation to eradicate Hamas. Adding to that pressure in recent weeks, captives who were released during the last month's ceasefire have been speaking publicly about their time in captivity. On Saturday afternoon, at Hostages Square in central Tel Aviv, people gathered to hear from families of the captives. Ruby Chen, the father of hostage Itay Chen, 19, said he met last week with President Biden, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and other senior U.S. officials. We wanted to give them the gratitude of all Jewish people for all they've done for us, Chen said. I don't think there was any other president who was so willing to do anything possible, 24/7 on behalf of his administration to help us see our loved ones. But he criticized Netanyahu's government, who said he was not interested in meeting with the families of the hostages. The Israeli government needs to be active, Chen said. They need to put an offer on the table, including prisoners with blood on their hands, he said, referring to the release of Palestinians held in Israeli jails to get the hostages back alive. Hadass Pilowsky Ron echoed that sentiment, saying releasing the hostages must be the most important goal of the war. There is no choice. Bring the hostages home first, she said. The Israeli military can always go back and get Hamas later, but every day that goes by, another hostage dies, and this is the most important issue right now. Earlier on Friday evening, after news of the accidental shootings broke, a group of people gathered in central Tel Aviv and marched through the city's streets at night, calling out to others to wake up and join them. Among them was Adam Yukteli, 37, an artist, who said the deaths of the 3 hostages reinforced for him that Israel needs to negotiate another ceasefire to free more captives. There's no military solution to this situation. Israel is bombing its way into a corner that it won't be able to get out of. All right, I'm going to stop the article right there because you just heard that Israel itself, the government, admitted that it killed 3 of its own hostages, who, allegedly, that's who they were going to get, right? We're going to go destroy Hamas. We're going to get our people back. You had, as the IDF says, they even admit it, 3 shirtless guys with white cloths on sticks. And that's almost out of like a goofy comedy movie where, somebody surrenders, puts their underwear on a stick and waves it because it's the only thing they have that's white. And that's the international sign of surrender. Number 2, you're shirtless. So you're not obviously carrying a, suicide bomb vest on you. Were you hiding weapons in your trousers? I mean, if that's the case, then you just order the guy to stop where he is, get down the ground, and put your hands behind your head. And then you assess whether or not he's a friendly or a foe. But this Israeli soldier allegedly just shot the guys. One guy ran back inside, died of his wounds later, and now the Israeli military is saying, well, they didn't follow the rules of engagement. It's like, well, he must be a pretty stupid soldier if he sees 3 people waving white flags and shoots at them and then says, oh, that's right, we're not supposed to do that. I confused the orders. Like, our orders used to be shoot people waving white flags, but yeah, today that order was rescinded, so I forgot, I'm sorry. Like, who are you putting through your military that is that idiotic that they don't know that killing unarmed men with no shirts on, waving white flags is a no-no? Nobody buys that. So if they're treating unknown people waving white flags like that, how do you think they're treating people who they know are Palestinians, right? These guys, they didn't know from Adam, but they killed him anyway. People who they know are Palestinians, what kind of treatment do you think they're getting? If they're not getting bombs dropped on them, what do you think Israeli soldiers are doing when they come into contact with 3 unknown males who later are confirmed to be Palestinians just walking around. You think they're going to let them go? And this is why I think this is not a war. This is business. The Israeli military is there on behalf of the Netanyahu government, not to wage a war, but it's to conduct business. And they want people to leave a particular parcel of real estate that is valuable to them. And I'll explain why in a second, but I'm going to play one more clip as to why I think this whole war narrative is completely concocted. Back in a second.
We just heard a gunshot, and they're yelling at people to get out of the area. You can see the soldiers. Get down, lay down flat. Lay down totally flat. You can see things are very tense here. There were 2 gunshots, and now they have someone on the ground.
Go back right now.
Very tense right now, as these soldiers appear to be arresting a Palestinian man. They have him in handcuffs right now, and you can see they've blindfolded him. And they are taking him away. You can see here, they're leading him away. They've blindfolded this man, and it appears they have captured yet another militant who entered from the Gaza Strip. It gives you a sense of just how unpredictable all of this is. They don't know where people are hiding, and they could still be in the tree lines here near to the Gaza border. Here near to the Gaza border.
Okay, so in that clip, we see Fox News, right? We got the embedded reporter. He's wearing the flak jacket that says press, and everyone's got to get down and put your head down and get all the way down, or you're going to get shot, dude. It's like, okay, oh, that was hairy. Oh, they're leading a guy away. It must be a Palestinian Hamas terrorist. Yeah, they stripped him down to his boxer briefs. Wow, that was wild. Okay, back to you, Jan. But like before they pan away, the cameraman, who probably got fired after this was released, pans back to the same place where they arrested this guy, and the IDF soldiers are walking away, and he's putting his pants back on. Like, oh, that was, hey, good job, Mahmoud. You're a great actor. Okay, I think we did that in one take. I think that one's good for the can. We can roll that one. We don't have to do it again. The guy that they just arrested and who they had their own IDF journalists there to take pictures of gets caught and released in the span of what was probably 3 or 4 minutes. It's all propaganda. It's all bullcrap. What you're seeing on TV, if it's on Fox or if it's on CNN or MSNBC or whoever, if it's coming from an official source, you can officially mark that down as propaganda bullcrap. It's serving a means to an end for whoever's putting that out. But anyway, let's go back to what I was saying previously in regards to this war and why I think it's business, is because the Gaza Strip, as far as Israel and the United States sees it, can no longer remain in Palestinian hands. And I'll tell you why I think that is. First and foremost, the Ukraine-Russia war. We have the US, NATO, and EU all bundled up versus Russia, but more importantly, the BRICS coalition. And a lot of people are saying, well, the BRICS, it's kind of this loose affiliation. It's not really a threat. It's going to become a threat, first and foremost, economically for the Western powers. And we're already seeing it, right? The sanctions have essentially backfired on the US and NATO. The Russian economy, I think, grew like 3 to 3.5% in the last 2 years. So, whoops, we screwed up there. Now, Europe, especially Germany, their gas prices are going through the roof because who knew? Russia was one of the largest exporters for petroleum and liquid natural gas to the EU and in particularly Germany, and now they're going to have to pay through the nose to get it from other sources. But more importantly, the coalition that is known as BRICS is expanding, and the 2 biggest countries, as far as the 2 biggest players, will be, of course, Saudi Arabia and Iran. And that's why that you keep hearing on the news like, well, we gotta stop the Houthi rebels, because they're backed by Iran, and we may have to go to war with Iran, right? We got to support Israel because Iran. It's like, what are you talking about? Iran hasn't attacked anybody in Israel directly. Iran hasn't attacked any American installations I know of, or that could change soon. So what is this war with Iran you keep like bringing back up like it's going to happen, or it's like it's in progress? It's not. You're willing it to happen, and here's why it might happen. I'm going to jump to an article that came out today from Zero Hedge, and it's in regard to the petrodollar and in the Suez Canal. Title: The Red Sea situation is worse than it looks. And this is the Suez Canal versus Cape of Good Hope shipping routes. Underappreciated risks of the Red Sea crisis. Zero Hedge reported yesterday, despite the U.S. military's new operation to protect shipping in the Red Sea from Houthi rebel attacks, many cargo ships are switching to the 40% longer route around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. Aside from the increased costs to global shipping and the risk of America getting into a shooting war in the Middle East, there are some additional underappreciated risks. Our friend Aristophanes makes a good point in this long post on the Red Sea situation, that to the extent Iran is arming the Houthis, who are driving shipping traffic away from the Suez Canal, Iran can exert leverage on Egypt in ways that can make the Israel-Gaza war worse. And this guy Aristophanes writes, this Red Sea situation is very, very bad, and while the best person to consult is a logistician, I want to make a layman stab at it. Currently, container ships are being attacked regularly with anti-ship missiles and drones via Houthis, Iran proxies in Yemen. And it continues. A massive share of Egypt's income comes from the Suez Canal. This broke a record in 2022 at $9.4 billion US dollars, which is almost 30% of their annual revenue. If the Suez is closed, they aren't making money. The Egyptian government is also stressed from multiple angles. They have a refugee crisis on their border with Sudan, but particularly topical right now is their land border with Gaza. The Rafah crossing is the only link to Gaza that's not controlled by Israel. Iran having a quarter of the Egyptian economy by the balls, unless the U.S. intervenes, means Iran has leverage over what gets into Gaza. If you use your imagination, this could include anything from chemical weapons in Syria to a dirty bomb or even a nuclear weapon from Iran being not beyond the realm of the possibilities. This is a nightmare scenario for the U.S. because such an event might force a more tangible military commitment in the region than we already have. Okay, I'll stop right there because the big takeaway there is the economic issue with shipping going through and coming from Europe and parts of the Indian Ocean using the Suez Canal and not using the route around the Cape Good Hope, South Africa. Now, yeah, Egypt's in a tight spot because you've got Israel, you've got Gaza, you've got the crossing, and then you've got Egypt, with its access to the Mediterranean, and things that could basically go through Egypt and up into Gaza as well. But isn't it interesting when this Hamas attack happened, the first instinct of the U.S. government was to send a strike carrier group along with Ohio-class submarines, which are nuclear capable, by the way, with ICBMs, and to park them in the Mediterranean. Now, why would the United States send strike carrier groups and Ohio-class submarines to park off of the coast of Israel while this is all going on? I mean, Israel has a first world military. I mean, they're obviously using it. So why send all this hardware to the Med? Next article may explain why. From Reuters. This is from July 2nd of 2023. Leviathan partners in Israel to invest $568 million in third gas pipeline. Jerusalem. Partners in the Israeli offshore gas project Leviathan said on Sunday they would invest $568 million to build a third pipeline that will allow increased natural gas production and exports. Leviathan, a deep-sea field with huge deposits, came online at the end of 2019 and produces 12 billion cubic meters, or BCM, of gas per year for sale to Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. The idea is to boost capacity to include sizable volumes for Europe as it seeks to reduce dependence on Russian energy. The new pipeline will connect the well with a production facility some 10 kilometers off Israel's Mediterranean shore. It is due to come online in the second half of 2025, when production at Leviathan will jump to 14 BCM a year, companies said. Leviathan Consortium includes operator Chevron and Israel's NewMed Energy and Ratio Energies. Expansion of production capacity and future liquefaction via a designated liquefaction facility will allow us to supply more natural gas to the local, regional, and very soon global market, said NewMed CEO Yossi Abu. In the long term, Leviathan production is expected to reach 21 BCM a year. The group has announced plans for a floating liquefied natural gas terminal off the Israeli coast with an annual LNG capacity of 4.6 million tons or 6.5 BCM. Ratio CEO Yigal Landau said the record demand for the last year continued in the first quarter and that there was room to expand use of the export network in Jordan as well. We're currently exploring the option of upgrading transmission infrastructures in Jordan to transport additional gas quantities to markets in Jordan and Egypt. Shares in Ratio were trading 1.4% in Tel Aviv after the announcement, and NewMed shares were up 0.7%. Okay, that article was July 2nd. The Hamas attack is October 7th. Well, yeah, dude, but maybe like it's just a coincidence. Maybe like things just happen the way they happen. There's no explanation for it. Yeah, or maybe things just happen because they're supposed to happen that way, and they're supposed to happen when they happen because certain people decide that's when it's supposed to happen. Leviathan partners in Israel, and I'll put up a picture of where that oil field is. It's a series of oil fields that's out in the Mediterranean. Some are owned by Greece and Cyprus. A lot are owned by Egypt. But the big one that we're talking about here is Leviathan. It's off the coast of Israel. And if you look closer down the map, you'll see there's the Ashkelon oil fields, and they're right off the coast of Gaza. And if you look even closer, you see that the pipeline that Israel runs between itself and Egypt has to bypass Gaza because, well, why would they run the pipeline through Gaza when Palestinians would have access to it? Palestinians might say to Israel, well, if you're going to run oil from A to B but need Gaza as real estate in between, aren't we owed a percentage? Because that's our territory, that's our land. You have to pay us like an easement per year, especially if you're going to be moving, 21 billion cubic meters of gas. That's a lot of money. Yeah, Israel is not keen on sharing that. And the United States isn't keen on sharing it with Palestine either. So this war kicks off. The United States decides to parks its strike carrier group off the coast, right near the Leviathan oil field, right? Maybe to sit on it as insurance policy while this whole war goes on. And maybe 2 million people are given really good incentive to move elsewhere. And then Israel, like you saw in my first episode, raises its flag on the beach. Now it can move that pipeline from bypassing Gaza to go through Gaza. Next article about Ashkelon. This is from October 9th, so 2 days after the Hamas attack. Israel's port of Ashkelon oil terminal shut in wake of conflict. Brussels, London. Israel's port of Ashkelon and its oil terminal have been shut in the wake of the conflict between Israel and Islamic group Hamas, shipping and trade sources said. The port is located 10 kilometers or 6 miles from the border with the Gaza Strip. Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel on Saturday, rampaging through towns, killing hundreds of people, kidnapping others. The Israeli military said it had called up unprecedented 300,000 reservists and was imposing a total blockade of the Gaza Strip. Signs it could be planning a ground assault there to defeat Hamas. Israel's state-owned Europe-Asia Pipeline Company, which runs a major terminal in Ashkelon, did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The Haifa and Ashdod ports remained open, sources said. Okay, so there you go, right? The Ashkelon terminal was shut down 2 days later after this attack because the Israeli government told them, we're going to start a serious ground operation. And, well, you didn't hear it from us, but maybe Gaza won't be Gaza in a year or two from now. Maybe it'll just be Israel. And maybe the United States is going to need a lot of that oil because, well, Russia is not shipping anymore to Europe. And the United States is obviously not drilling for its own oil. It's not refining its own petroleum. And if Saudi Arabia joins BRICS, and if South Africa joins BRICS, and if Venezuela joins BRICS, well, you're running out of oil-rich countries real fast now, aren't you? And that's why I want to say something about South Africa. It's also a BRICS country. So if the Suez Canal is blocked by Iran or Saudi Arabia, and they make it a toll bridge now, what's stopping South Africa using, possibly naval reinforcements from Russia, China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia, and the whole shebang? What's stopping them from funding terror groups off the Cape of Good Hope? You're way on the far side of the world when you go around the Cape of Good Hope. Can the U.S. military really afford to have a strike carrier group off the coast of Israel, send another strike carrier group to police the Cape of Good Hope, and then have enough strike carrier groups to defend our mainland? This is what happens with empires, right? They eventually bite off enough of a piece too big for its own throat, and they can't swallow it, and they choke on it. They choke on their gluttony. They choke on their greed. And this could be what's happening now. So now there is a mad dash for an Israeli land grab of Gaza because the United States is telling them, listen, there is an economic war coming down the pike here, and we need to get ahead of it. We need to monopolize all of those oil fields in the Mediterranean. And, well, the Greek ones, obviously, the Greeks are, they'll do what they're told. But Egypt and your Israeli oil fields are going to be vital for the U.S. infrastructure, because now that we've basically aggravated the Russians to the point where they no longer want to trade with us anymore, we've funded a proxy war against them. We just lost a huge set of oil-rich countries that could also cut off the lifeline to the Europe and North America, which is the Suez Canal. And I'm going to read an article from 2019 that reinforces this point. And this is from the Atomic or the Energy Commission in the United States. This is from their own website, the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This is July 23rd, 19. The Suez Canal and Sumed Pipeline are critical choke points for oil and natural gas trade. The Suez Canal and the Suez Pipeline are strategic routes for Persian Gulf crude oil, petroleum products, and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, shipments to Europe and North America. Located in Egypt, the Suez Canal connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea, and it's a critical choke point because of the large volumes of energy commodities that flow through it. Choke points are narrow channels along widely used global sea routes that are critical to global energy security. Total oil flows through the Suez Canal and Sumed Pipeline accounted for about 9% of total seaborne traded petroleum in 2017, and LNG flows through the Suez Canal and the Sumed Pipeline account for about 8% of global LNG trade. Since 2016, growth in northbound total petroleum flows through the Suez Canal and Sumed Pipeline has slowed, and southbound flows through the canal have risen substantially. In particular, the Suez Canal is gaining importance as a southbound route for U.S. and Russian crude oil and petroleum products to destinations in Asia and the Middle East. Slightly more than half of total petroleum transiting the Suez Canal in 2018 was sent northbound to destinations in Europe and North America. Petroleum exports from Persian Gulf countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran accounted for 85% of Suez Canal northbound traffic. Northbound flows of petroleum products have risen in recent years, particularly as more ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel has been shipped from Saudi Arabia to European countries. Okay, so that's the U.S.'s own Energy Information Administration. Your tax dollars hard at work, telling you in 2019 how crucial the Suez Canal is for northbound and southbound oil traffic, particularly to North America and to Europe. And now that you've essentially cut off any of the petroleum traffic or liquid natural gas traffic you'd expect from Russia, where's the difference going to come from? And I think it's in the Leviathan oil field. And I hate to chalk this whole catastrophe up to it's a war for oil, it's a war for oil. It's like Iraq 2003 all over again, but that's kind of what it is. The petrodollar is going away. Saudi Arabia, Iran, all of these, Venezuela, all these oil-rich countries are probably going to look to join BRICS because BRICS is going to offer them a fair shake than the United States is. The United States' motto was like, look, it's our way or the highway. But if you take our highway, Uncle Sam's big green machine will protect you. The United States military will come and defend you from any enemies you might make, and you can rely on that, provided you sell us all the crude we want, and everybody else has to trade, buy and sell your crude using our money. And that was the monopoly racket we had with Saudi Arabia, and it's going away. And it's no coincidence that when the U.S. government had to admit that the Ukraine war is beginning to really falter. I mean, I called that a year ago when they already started talking about, who the blame was going to be laid on. That's when if they start to discuss who to blame the failure on before the war is even over, that they kind of, they see the storm clouds on the horizon. They know it's going to rain soon, so they're looking just to CYA. But the Ukraine war going south on them is, I'm positive now, what prompted this whole false flag in Israel, this Hamas attack. You're telling me that this Leviathan deal for like almost $500 million goes down in July of last year or this year, and then the Hamas attack just happens to come out of nowhere, but roughly 3 months later? It's way too coincidental. And this is why I think that this isn't war. This is a business thing. This is a business deal between the United States and Israel. And the Palestinian people who have no one to defend them are simply caught in the middle. And they're going to get squeezed out unless somebody physically intervenes. And I think that's what it will take. It will take some other nation sending in peacekeeping forces or waging its own proxy war against Israel to get this to stop. And it's all propaganda, as you saw in that video. It's made to convince you as the American public that no, this is a war against Hamas and these are terrorists just like we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and there are no other motives here. So this is good guys versus bad guys, and I'm for the good guys. I don't see the world like that anymore. Neither should you. This is a business, and this is my take on the Holy Land shenanigans that's going on right now. But I know I covered a lot there, so feel free to add anything in the comments or disagree. If you disagree, that's what it's all about. I have no doubt that this video is also going to get suppressed and shadow banned. It will rise up to 60 or 70 views, and then it will just level off. But for the 60 or 70 of you who happen to see it, I appreciate it. So give us a thumbs up if you would. And we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Again, possibly 20,000 civilians have now died on account of this, and it's beyond tragic. And I just hope that when the truth comes out, the people who orchestrated this will be brought onto the carpet and made to answer for it, and will be given jail cells for the rest of their lives. But I know that's just wishful thinking. So we'll just have to stand by and see what happens. Until then, I hope you have a Merry Christmas. If I don't see you before the New Year, have a Happy New Year. And next time, we might cover this and we might cover something else. But until then, take it easy.